this challenge was to read 2 genres that I've never read before. The book that I decided to read was Leviathan by Scott Westfeld. And it's based on steampunk. I've never read steampunk, so I thought this would be interesting to read. It's based on World War I, and I was brought up in history all about World War I. So some of the characters in this book are real and some are not. The 2 main characters of this book was Darren. Now, she was a Scottish young girl and she wanted to be in the British Air Force. So she had to pretend to be a boy and she became Dylan. She went to the Air Force in London, and when she was there, she met the Huxley. Now, the Huxley was a great big jellyfish that floated up into the sky, but it was held by a rope by the men on the ground. And there was a little tiny leather seat underneath this Huxley jellyfish type thing. And then Darren would sit in it and she floated up into the sky quite a few hundred feet up, and she could see for miles around. And then there was a storm coming. So she was hoping the men down on the ground would pull her in, but the storm was too rough and she was let go, and she was like a helium balloon. She went off. Then out of nowhere, she sees this great big air balloon, but it's more shaped like a zeppelin. And then when it gets nearer, it's actually a whale, a huge whale. And underneath this huge whale is a carriage. And inside the carriage is where everyone meets and talks and does meetings. But then you can actually go inside the well, which was really bizarre for me, because I'm like, why would you want to go inside a well? And they were walking inside the well. To make the well float, they had these birds and these black bats flying inside and pulling the well up and carrying them across the world. And she went on this adventure. Now, the other character is Alex. Now, Alex is a young man and his parents had just died, and his parents were very important and they were assassins. So he was sad, but he had some people that helped him, and their name was Klops and Volga. Volga was his tutor for school, and Klops was a very clever mechanic. And they said, right, we need to get to Switzerland. It's going to be neutral ground. The clankers, which were the Germans, want to kill you. So you need to get to Switzerland and we'll take you. So they get into this thing called a walker. And all I can say is a big giant egg with legs. And they get inside and they used it like a tank would. And they would go across the towns and through the countryside to get to Switzerland. And they do. And when they get to Switzerland, there's a big old ruined castle that his dad had brought many years ago and did it up. Well, while in their castle, they hear a great big commotion outside and they look up into the sky and they see this great big zeppelin falling from the sky and landed in the Alps. And Alex was like, shall we go and see if they're okay? Shall we help them? And Volga was, no, we mustn't go. We mustn't go. Just be by ourselves, because if they find out where we are, then the clankers are gonna get us. So he was like, okay. But he couldn't. He had to go and see if these people needed help that were on this zeppelin that he thought. But when he got there, he realised it wasn't a zeppelin. It was a huge well. And there was carnage everywhere. And that's where he meets Darren. But he knows her as Dylan. And then she takes him to the captain and sort of said, he helped me. He lives round here. But Alex didn't want to tell him what his real name is because he was scared that they would capture him because they were classed as enemies, but they weren't at the time. Also on this big Leviathan was this doctor, and she had these special eggs and she wanted to get them to the Ottoman Empire. No, we don't know why. You have to read the next book for that. But she is protecting these eggs and she's a bit weary about Alex. Anyway, they go on these adventures and that is the storyline. One thing that made me smile in this book is that the author kept saying barking spider. And for me, barking spider means a fart. So I just kept laughing because this character, Darren, could say, barking spider all the time. And I just kept saying, why? Why is she farting? Why is she blaming this barking spider for her fart? So we normally would say, you would do a fart like that. And then you would go, oh, that silly barking spider is following me everywhere. Because you just blame that fart on the barking spider. I would recommend this book for young teenagers between 14 to 16. And if you like steampunk, then this is the book for you. For me, it wasn't. I would give it 2.5 stars out of 5.